You're listening to Crystal and Emily on Love Your Shelf, the best librarian podcast in the extensive and highly competitive field of librarian podcasts. Hello.
Hello.
So it's been a long time since we have
has.
recorded a podcast, but we're back with Love Your Shelf, and we're starting season 5, episode number 1, which, basically our seasons, the reasoning behind those is that basically if we take a long break, then we start a new season.
Got to start fresh.
Yeah. So we haven't been doing this for 5 years or anything,
No.
but we're going to call it a season.
You wouldn't know. I know we sound like such professionals,
Yes,
but we are new
consummate
to
professionals.
this.
High quality
That's
podcast.
right.
But we both have had colds recently.
Yep.
So if we're coughing, just
It's not COVID.
number one.
But
it's
also,
not
I hope we don't run you off the road. I'll try to be dainty about it.
Right. You're right. We don't want to. We don't want the cough to scare you and make you jump. So we're all fine. We're on this end. But we did want to get our podcast out today because we have so many exciting things coming up.
Yes, we do.
The NEA Big Read kicks off later this month.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're going to be going all over town. We're going to be giving away this free book, which is Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson. And having all kinds of events with our community partners that are somehow thematically related to the book. Some more closely and more seriously than others.
But that's the fun part, is kind of seeing how we can connect our events to the story.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, we do have a lot of fun. And so hopefully you guys will too. And so we'll be out on September 23rd at Next Friday downtown with all the food trucks, giving away more copies of the book and doing fun stuff. So take a look. You can see on our website, follow us on Facebook, listen to us here. We'll be talking about events, but keep up with those coming up. And we also, if you've got teens or kiddos that want to take part, we are having thematic events that are for those age groups because the book is a little bit more geared toward adults. So we have a list of read-alikes. I'm going to mention some. And then you can also get a brochure at the library and look on our website for information about those so that we don't leave anybody out. This is our community-wide read, including all ages and people of all interests. So the Harry Potter series is mentioned, of course, as a kids' book series that is somehow related to these because there is a bit of magic or supernatural
element.
Yeah.
Never
we don't want to give things
heard of the
away.
Harry Potter series, though.
I hear tell that it is very popular amongst the children and teenagers, too. Hoop Girls by Lucy Jane Bledsoe is another one. There's a lot of basketball in this, which I have never liked a book that had a lot of basketball in it.
I know.
I will say that. Never read a book that had a lot of basketball, and it's not a lot.
No, but it's
two,
a theme. Yeah,
it's a theme. The two main characters bond over their love of basketball. There's also Understanding Myself, A Kid's Guide to Intense Emotions and Strong Feelings. That is a little segue into what the book is about, and I've kind of had to say this about 3,000 times in the last few months.
Yeah.
But basically, the book is about these two young women who meet when they're teenagers, and then because of a scandal, they drift apart. Years later, that's set in the 80s, and then in the 90s, years later, one of the women contacts the other one and says, hey, will you come take care of my kids for the summer? I've got these stepchildren, they need caring for. Will you do that? And so the other girl is in kind of a
rough spot.
Yeah, she's not really enjoying life where she is. So she says, sure. But turns out there's a tiny bit of a catch. And whenever the two twins that are 10, whenever they get upset, they catch on fire. And so it doesn't hurt them, but it could,
burn things around
burn anything around them. And so it's, there's the supernatural element for you. That's it for the supernatural element.
Yeah, I mean, everything else is believable. And I love how strange this story is. I really want to know where this idea came from.
Yes. But it's such a good metaphor.
Yeah.
Or it's it totally, I feel sometimes like I'm going to catch on fire.
Yeah.
And so, I think everybody has had that feeling. But kids too, how do you regulate those,
it's so
those
hard
big
to control.
Emotions? And
it's a strangely touching, heartwarming story. I just really loved it. Yeah. I just finished it a few days ago, and I've thought about it almost constantly since I finished it.
Oh yeah, no, it's great, and so we're really looking forward to it. Lots of positive feedback so far, but we're really excited to talk to more people about it. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have all kinds of book discussions that are related to that, in addition to like the fun times that we're going to be having. But I also want to talk about other books that I've read.
What else you got?
And since it's been several months, I'm just going to start with the more recent ones and work my way back. I think will probably make the most sense. So there's one that I'm currently reading right now. Mm-hmm. It's called At Home on an Unruly Planet, Finding Refuge on a Changed Earth. It's by Madeline Ostrander. And it is good. Mm-hmm. It is not cheerful. And, as you can imagine, it's about climate change. And so it's a lot of firsthand accounts. So the author has sort of found people and places that are currently being affected by climate change, and then investigating more about it. And then, though, of course, extrapolating about what's coming down, in the future.
What to look forward to.
What we can anticipate and expect.
Cool.
Yeah, it's not, though. Oh, it's the opposite of cool.
Super hot.
Yeah, in most cases.
Yikes.
So it's, I don't want to paint it as something that's so, terrible and bleak that you can't read it. I think everybody should read it. And it's extremely well written. And it really does paint a picture of these individuals and these places,
sure.
As well as talking about how things will continue to change if things don't turn around.
Right.
And so everybody, especially captains of industry who are, anyway, we won't get into that.
All of the captains of industry listening to this podcast right
exactly.
now. Read that book.
Yeah. Share this with your own captain of industry that you know.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, but read it. It's a good book. But it is harrowing.
Yeah.
And then, so shifting gears a little bit from that, I read How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. And the first thing that I saw about this was that it's for fans of Cloud Atlas and Station 11, which two great books I really love. And so basically it opens not unlike some other, and this is related to climate stuff, but it's fiction. And also there's some supernatural elements. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah. I think it shows similar kinds of things that you can anticipate. We'll put it that way.
I see.
But so it starts in 2030, and this scientist goes in search of his daughter, who's been researching near the Arctic Circle.
Okay.
And they had found this super intact child from thousands of years ago. So they're researching, and there's all different kinds of scientists at this station, but the scientist who goes traveling there, his daughter has died. in the research site.
Okay.
So he goes to actually take over her work, because that's what she would have wanted, right?
Okay.
And while they're there, digging in the permafrost, they unleash a new plague.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
You had to keep digging, didn't you?
Yeah. So definitely the Station 11 vibes there,
but that
but
sounds
also,
cool. Yeah.
So that sets up the very beginning, and then it's years later, the rest of the book takes place with, like, what has come of this.
Up from the plague.
Yes.
Okay.
And it is beautiful. There's beautiful relationships, but it is also bleak because the ramifications of that plague are
That's what I was gonna ask.
Very extreme.
Yeah.
Almost on the level of Station 11.
That's what I was about to ask. Okay.
But
2% of the population is left.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
There were very few. But in Station 11, it takes up, years later, and it kind of skips the part where everything's falling apart.
Right.
This doesn't skip that part.
Oh.
So just to let you know about that.
Yeah.
But then, it goes so far beyond that. It's
cool.
Really intriguing. So
cool. Yeah.
I would definitely recommend it, but it can be,
just brace yourself a little
brace
bit.
yourself.
Yeah.
It's a dystopian disaster.
It's not going to be cute.
Right, exactly. And then, speaking of dystopian, I also read The Circle by Dave Eggers, and then its follow-up, which just came out this year, is The Every. So The Circle came out 10 years ago, and then The Every is the book 2, basically, 10 years later. In The Circle, it's based on, or it's very loosely based on Google as a company.
Okay.
And also many other big tech giants.
Yeah.
So they're all named other things, but you can kind of tell what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And so The Circle is the biggest internet company, and it's about a woman who is hired on to work there. And it's really about, and if you kind of imagine yourself 10 years ago, what was the state of social media and that kind of thing. It's really taking hold at that point. And so it's about how these media companies have control over so many things. And so so all of these people, like thousands of people that work for the Circle, the company, they buy into this as this is going to make the world a better place.
Yes,
a safer place.
Yeah.
But then it's about
for the better. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the things that they do to get toward that, it's very obviously a parody, a dark parody of what are all of these, things that can come from this.
Right.
So not spoiling anything, but there's cameras everywhere, basically.
Right.
To the point where, what if you just wore a camera all the time?
Right.
And
why would that really be so different?
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of it is, or what about why would it be bad if the Circle controls all banking functions in the world? That can't be a problem. And so, it talks about how they're circumventing monopoly issues, and anyway, it's...
And how sort of, little by little and over time, it is easier to sort of, bend your morals this way or that way. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It starts out, people are just... There's a Black Mirror episode with...
Bryce Dallas
Howard, yes.
That is an insane episode, yeah.
It's kind of a similar vibe where this woman who's kind of the central character is our lens into this place, but she is not us necessarily. She has bought into it, just like that Bryce Dallas Howard character, and she's fully consumed by it.
Got it. Yeah.
It's a good book. It brings up a lot of topics. Then The Every takes place years later, with the same character, except she's not the central character anymore. There's a new hire, a woman who wants to get into the Every campus, but not to work there. She wants to work there to bring it down.
Love it.
Yeah. And so it is over the top, like, you know, but over the top in a way that's not so far off from what those places
that's what
are
I was
like.
about to say. It's like, is what we're living now not over the top?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you think, like, 10 years ago when the first book came out, a lot of think TikTok didn't exist and all of this stuff that is so endemic.
Yeah. I'll be swift, but I saw something about it might have been a TikTok video about this guy living in New York City saying that, like, he is straight up afraid every day, every morning when he leaves his apartment, when he's just trying to get a coffee, he's scared of some TikToker jumping out of the bushes trying to, like, interview him or get content or whatever. And I was thinking about, like, I was in New York 7 years ago, and that wasn't a thing. I mean, there would be people on the sidewalk trying to talk to you for whatever reason, but it wasn't, I wasn't frightened of it. And, he wasn't actually afraid,
right,
but just anyway, in 7 years, that is full blown,
Yeah. And even here in Nacogdoches, we don't have that many people.
Sure.
But as an example, I saw down at Festival Park, there's the creek runs through there, and there's a bridge. And there was a guy doing, like, I don't even know what you call it, very complicated looking, like, just like handstand type things on the bridge edge.
What? Making a video?
And somebody was down in the creek, like, getting the shot.
Oh, my goodness.
And so, yeah, it is. It's everywhere.
Yeah. It makes me wonder how I would have handled that had this been around when I was a teenager. It just makes me curious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because teenagers do, like,
I feel like it
feet.
would have been such an added layer of stress. I don't know. It's like a thing
Oh,
I need
it
to
is,
do
yeah.
to be cool. And
even the, very limited and old school by this measure, social media that we have to do for our job.
Yes.
Sometimes seems stressful in that, well, not stressful, but.
Yeah, but I mean, it's, there are a lot of steps to it. I don't like these people where it's like their job. That's believable to me. I mean, that it could be a full-time job. Like,
oh, yes.
Creating content, like coming up with ideas, filming, editing. I mean, it is.
It's not just like going around, turning your camera on and getting things.
Yeah.
It's a lot more to it than that.
Tailoring it to what you want it to be. Yeah. Anyway.
It's wild. So both of those books are
cool,
intriguing in that sense. And then very much shifting the message is the next book that I read, and people have been telling me about this book for years and years. There was a book club that read it. Like, I think everybody I know has, and I'm late to the party. But Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote "Braiding Sweetgrass: Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants," and so. She is a botanist, but she is also a member of the Potawatomi Nation, and so she talks about how like her ancestors and her people, her family, and how their knowledge of nature and plants and botany, in that sense. How that sort of fits or doesn't fit so much with her role as a scientist, and especially as a female scientist.
Yeah.
So lots of different things that are coming into play there, and I actually listened to it, and she reads it, and it's she has just a very melodious voice,
great.
But it's and especially when it's something like that that's so personal. I really like it.
I do too.
When the author reads it,
I do too,
and it makes it that much more present.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's again. I guess I'm just back on a climate change kick, but it's not so much about climate change, but as about like how we can live in better,
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think at this point, climate change, you could probably tie climate change into almost anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you should.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way. So, a little bit lighter reading. I read a mystery by a French writer called David Fonkinos.
Well done.
Say that.
I think that's probably right.
Translated by Sam Taylor. It's called The Mystery of Henri Pique. And so it takes place in a small town in Brittany.
Love a small town mystery.
You're right. And it's very small. There's not that many characters in the book, which is... They're, like, mysteries have that struggle, right? Like, you don't want too many characters, because then the murderer could be anybody, or the mystery could be anything.
You want to, know who all the...
Yeah, but then sometimes it's like, well, there's only 5
now we don't have any people in our town. They've all been murdered or are murderers.
Yeah. A lot of those cozy mysteries, it's like, this is not a safe place for you people.
Like Louise Penny, hers take place, a lot of her books take place in Three Pines, but she is smart in that it's sort of like every other book takes place somewhere nearby.
Yeah.
Same characters, but nearby, but they'll kind of, anyway. That's a smart way to do it.
Yeah, it's that old, like, soap opera thing.
Yes, totally.
But, so in this small town, there is a library, and there's a specialized section of the library that is taken from another novel. And in this novel, I'm blanking on the author's name. I'll think of it in a second. But in this novel, there is a library where people take books that weren't published.
Oh.
So, like, discarded manuscripts or manuscripts that, were rejected. And so that's like there's Richard Brautigan wrote the book.
Oh, okay.
And so there's a novel about that. Well, this librarian in this small French town says, that's cool, I'm going to do that and actually do it in real life.
Yeah, in the story.
The story. And so he starts accepting, like, these rejected publications, and he keeps this library there. And then one thing leads to another, and people find something surprising in the library, and then there's a mystery surrounding that.
Cool concept. Yeah,
it's very French.
Yes.
So it is the pace and the characters maybe seem a little bit off.
Okay.
From, like, American detective fiction, but there's still, it's an interesting read for sure.
Cool.
Then I read Proust Was a Neuroscientist, so on a French kick here, by Jonah Lehrer. And basically, if you're familiar with Proust, like, he's like, that's like the one that if you start talking about Proust, everybody's like, oh my God, what a snob. Nobody's read this. But essentially, the way that Proust writes about the mind and about memory and, like, these kinds of things, he sort of, according to this author, kind of foresaw what is going to turn into neuroscience later, and things that they find out from actual experimentation. So then he also talks about other thinkers like Gertrude Stein, Virginia Woolf, who did the same thing in their experimental modern writing. They really, like, imagine this, space of the mind in a way that later they find out is actually, that's how we think. And so it's fascinating reading. Even if you're not snobby.
Snob or not.
You can pretend to be one if you've read that book. And then right now I'm reading another, sounds like a snobby book, but it's actually not. It's called Index, A History of Thee.
Index.
So, yes. So it's Index, A History of the, very clever title.
Yes.
Subtitled, A Bookish Adventure from Medieval Manuscripts to the Digital Age by Dennis Duncan. If you're a book person, this is good. Nice. I'll put it that way. But it's specifically talking about the development of our modern kind of indexing.
Okay.
So if you're a librarian, this is of a special interest to you because there are times in history that, several hundred years ago, that there was no alphabetical order.
Right.
They didn't conceive of that as being a way to order things.
Yeah.
In fact, when that change started happening, a lot of people really hated it and said that it was stupid. Why would you do it that way?
You're making my life more difficult.
Right. And so, but the way that the author brings in contemporary writing and talks about the history of a little bit. It talks about a little bit of pictograms and stuff like that.
Okay.
It really kind of gives you a really well-rounded and really interesting perspective on what seems to be the most boring subject that you could possibly write about. But
cool.
He's also kind of a funny person. He seems so. It's a little tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
That's great.
So, yeah. I recommend it, even if you're not bookish or whatever.
Snobs or not.
Yeah, exactly. That is probably going to be the title of this episode.
I do love that scale. Snobs or not. Everyone's welcome.
Fall in there. Let's see. And then, so I'll just mention a couple of more books and then we can talk about some things that we've watched. But I read The Seep by Channa Porter.
The Seep.
And it's in the not too distant future, and it's about this couple, and there is this alien sort of invasion, but it's not a violent alien invasion.
The quiet kind.
Yeah. And so they come and they basically have this thing called, I hate to say it's like they have it, but they bring with them the seep.
Okay.
And basically everything is all connected and it makes people feel, like they understand the universe and, all of this kind of stuff. And then you can sort of remake yourself in all of these different ways. Well, in the couple, one of them wants to sort of join the seep and become a child again, which is a thing you can do. And the other one's like, I'm 60 years old.
Oh my gosh,
and you want to leave me?
Yeah.
And so then she goes through all of this,
Oh my gosh, how interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds really out there. It is very out there, but you can kind of quickly get into the seep of it, I think, and it makes you think about, relationships and aging and connections to other people. How necessary is that? And then also these, as with any kind of depiction of a utopia. What's the downside?
Exactly. Well, and it makes me think of in high school I was in the play Rhinoceros by Eugenie Ionesco.
That's frequently a high school play. Not at all.
Oh my gosh, no. We were I don't know, breaking some kind of mold.
Yeah.
But it's a theater of the absurd, and so it's about these people in a French village who begin to turn into rhinoceroses. And it was written to be, these people who are turning into rhinoceroses are, it was about the Nazis invading France, and so people sort of flipping to the Nazi side, and some people made the decision to do it, some people sort of go kicking and screaming, but either way, almost the entire town is a rhinoceros by the end of it. Not saying that's what this message is, but just the idea of a deeper message is, that's cool. It's a cool way to explore that.
We didn't talk about you bringing this up at all.
Oh my gosh,
this segue is so perfect. to the next
Did you
book.
read a book about rhinoceroses?
Dragons.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's called When Women Were Dragons by Kelly Barnhill.
Love that.
And it sets up at the beginning. In 1955, there was an event called the Mass Dragoning, where...
For real or in this book?
It just is.
Okay, I was like, why did we not learn about that in history?
In the book.
Okay.
But it's like this, where spontaneously women just turn to dragons. And they not only do they just turn into dragons, they fly off and leave their families. Yeah. Right?
So then they're... is it like all of the women? So they're...
Not all of them, no.
Okay.
So
they have a choice?
They don't know. So that's the thing. So it happens in 1955.
Okay.
And so imagine women's roles in 1955.
Right.
And then imagine that these hundreds of thousands of women just take off and leave their families, and basically the government tries to control the narrative, right?
Right.
And so they turn it into like that it's evil, that, and they're never going to talk about it.
Yeah.
And they won't allow scientists to study the phenomenon.
And are dragons a thing in this world? Or,
no.
Okay. So it would be like if...
They turned into a mythical creature,
yes.
basically. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, okay.
And
wow.
So some of them, are, they go... Anyway, they don't know exactly what happens to all of them, but they're still out there.
Yeah.
And then years later, there's a young girl whose mother did this. And... So she's kind of left behind. She's... adolescent. And then as she gets older, things start to happen.
Okay.
And you find out more about this, phenomenon.
Yes, okay. What's behind it kind of thing. Cool. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. That's... That's really funny.
Right. But as in Rhinoceros, it's obviously about women leaving the home,
right,
in the 50s,
right,
and leaving their husbands and children there to
and the drama that's left behind.
yes. So it's definitely fantasy fiction, obviously, but it's rooted in
reality. Certainly,
exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
I recommend it, but it is funny that.
Yes.
We did not talk about that
no.
in advance. So I'm going to stop talking for a second and let you talk about some
stuff
things
that
you've
watched.
Yeah.
The only new show, some of these that I've watched are new to me, but not new to the world. The new to the world thing I just watched, Ring of Power, just came out on Amazon Prime. It's a TV series and prequel to The Lord of the Rings. Anyone ever heard of that? And anyway, my hopes weren't super high. I was kind of expecting it to be a lower quality, but it's not. It looks really beautiful, and the story is one that I'm really intrigued by, and there are a lot of ties to the original Lord of the Rings stories, which is fun and cool. But so it's about Galadriel, who is it disgusting of me as a librarian to admit that I haven't read Lord of the Rings, that I am basing this off of the movies alone? We can cut this out completely if
I'm leaving it in there.
You gotta sit in this.
No, librarians don't actually have to read everything that's ever written.
No, and I'll be honest, Lord of the Rings is not... I have tried to read it before, and I just couldn't get through it.
It's not for everyone.
It's not. But I adore the stories and the movies. Anyway, Galadriel, who is Cate Blanchett's character in the movies, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of years before our story begins, and she's hunting for Saruman, who is, the big evil eye in the books and movies. But anyway, so she's hunting for him as a young woman. Anyway, I'm really excited to see where it goes. I'm sure there are lots of people that have terrible things to say, that these are probably the people that know everything about Middle Earth inside and out and speak Elvish and all of that. But yeah. I, for one, after the first 2 episodes, am looking forward to seeing where they take this series. So, I have also started Succession recently on HBO, and I tried to start it maybe a year ago, and the first episode just really like icked me out, and I think you felt the same way. Yeah. It's. People have said that this family is sort of loosely based on the Murdoch family. So they're, it's a family of very, 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 very unimaginably wealthy people. And I think in the first episode especially, they're trying to really show you who these people are. And like there's a part where, so their cousin Greg, who's an everyday like you and me, he's on the phone with his mom, and he's like, yeah, I'm down to my last $20 or whatever. And then one of his cousins that belongs to the rich family, she's trying to get into a vending machine. She's like, oh, dang it, I don't have any cash. Do you have any cash? And Greg is too scared. He wants them to like him and stuff. And so he's like, oh yeah, and like gives her that last $20. And he's kind of trying to explain to her that it's his last $20, but she's like not listening and walks away. I was so stressed out about that scenario. I've been on my last $20 before. Yeah. And anyway, but I stuck with it, and you sort of, I don't know if I've grown numb to the despicable things that they do, or you just sort of begin to embrace this is what I'm in for. But
well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the majority of stories are told about people that are wealthy or powerful or whatever. So it's not unique in that.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, the entire time I'm thinking like, am I rooting for this person to win or to fail? I can't really decide. And it changes from moment to moment, which I kind of like. Anyway, it's very dramatic, and actually I can only watch about 2 episodes at a time. I wouldn't say it's a binge-worthy show, but anyway, I'm enjoying Succession. And then I just recently finished the series on Netflix, Never Have I Ever. It's created and produced by Mindy Kaling from The Office. I think that's what most people would recognize her from. Mm-hmm. And so the 3rd season just came out. It's very different from the other 2 series I just talked about. Davy is a high school girl in California, first generation American, and comes from a sort of, I hate to say stereotypical Indian mother. Davy's expected to make perfect grades, and she is really smart, but she's also boy crazy and very much a California teen. And so I love the sense of humor of this show. It's so charming. I feel like I've gotten a bit of a glimpse into what like teens today are like. And I'm not saying it's totally accurate or anything, but even just sort of like the jargon is modern. And anyway, the characters are, almost all of them are just so completely charming, and I really love this series, so I recommend it big time for any age, snob or not. Yeah, and that's all I have. I know that I've seen more since May, but these are just sort of recent.
I have some. Things. I think you may have.
Yeah. I can tag on to anything you bring up.
Well, there were a couple of shows that ended that I was sad about. Grace and Frankie, which is such a cute show. It's over.
I haven't brought myself to watch the very last, because they split the last season up, right?
Yeah, there's like just a very few left in like the second half of it, second
portion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I haven't watched those yet.
And then Ozark ended, and it was very Godfather-esque. The last episode, let me just say that the series started very promisingly.
Yeah.
You know, I was into it. And the actors, great.
Yeah.
Love the main actors. But it just got harder and harder to watch, I think. And then the last episode just boo-hoo.
Yeah.
Or just not boo-hoo, but
Boo.
bah humbug.
Yeah.
It was not good. So,
and that's
sorry
that's what
if you
Nick
still
said.
Have to,
Yeah, no, that's what. Yeah.
That's, obviously just my opinion. Maybe you'll love it, or you did, but. And then I watched on Apple Plus. I watched The Essex Serpent.
Oh, what is that? I don't even know what that is.
It's Claire Danes is the main character, and it is one of the most dreary looking and desolate looking sets I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's set, it goes back and forth between this Essex area and London, sort of when science was becoming, more of a thing. So there's like the doctor, but it's still very visceral the way they do the doctoring, we'll put it that way. And there's also still lots of superstition. So it's like this, they have this myth of the Essex serpent, and a couple of people come up deceased, and they blame it on the Essex serpent.
Okay.
And so
which is
Claire
easy.
Danes' character,
easy to blame.
Claire Danes' character is a widow who's just kind of been stuck in this terrible marriage, and so she decides she's going to go out to this seaside place, which is the really desolate, terrible, dark place, and decides she's going to hunt for the Essex serpent. She doesn't think that it's a mythical creature. She thinks it's like a dinosaur or something, and she's really interested in fossils and all this kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
And so, yeah, and then there's a love triangle.
Gotta love one.
Yeah, so if that all sounds good to you, then
this is for you.
This is for you. But I don't know.
Yeah, when did that? Is that very recent?
Last year, I think.
Okay,
yeah.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, Apple Plus is not getting their stuff out there.
No, they're not.
There's a lot of stuff that I have seen, including another one that I wanted to mention. I think I've maybe even started it back when we were still recording in the spring, but I finished it in the summer, and that's Severance.
Summer was just telling me about that.
Yeah, it's based on a book, and Adam Scott plays the main character, and it is dark comic, like basically like being John Malkovich or something like that. It's got very that kind of vibe, but a little darker than that maybe. Okay. But the funny parts are just kind of wacky.
I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable.
What's going on? But basically, they have come up with this drug, this treatment that allows this particular company, their employees, while they're at work, they do not remember their home life, and vice versa. So as soon as they leave work, they're like, they don't remember what they did, anything about it. They just know that they
both sides of
were
that
severed from
that's
that.
Crazy.
And
then vice versa. Any home drama is out the
they
window.
have no idea. They don't know
their families.
They don't know who their family. They don't know if they're married.
Oh my
have
gosh!
Kids. And so that's just the premise is kind of mind bending.
Yeah.
And the first episode, it took me a lot. That's why I think there was such a huge gap. Is I watched it and I thought, I don't know if I can get into this.
Yeah.
But then I did and watched them all in rapid succession. It was really good.
Okay, cool. Noted.
Very much, very good. Let's see. I watched The Time Traveler's Wife because I really liked the book when it came out years ago.
We didn't finish it, I just realized.
Well, it got canceled.
It did?
Yeah.
They didn't finish the series or the season?
They finished the season, but it's not going to be brought back.
Okay.
And I have to say, can understand why.
I'm kind of with you. Even, okay, did they get to the end of the book in the series?
No. No.
Okay, we'll talk later. But
yeah,
I don't know. I've read the book. Nick has not. We were into it at first, like the first few episodes, and I don't know. I just kind of got. I don't know if I loved the way the two main characters were cast.
Oh, they had no chemistry.
No.
And by the
they're
end of
supposed
it,
to have massive chemistry.
That's the whole thing.
That's literally, that's like what's, sizzling beneath this whole story.
Exactly. And it was just zero.
Yeah.
And it also, in the book, so basically in the Time Traveler's Wife, the story is that there's a man, Henry, who spontaneously travels through time. He can't control it, and he doesn't know, where he's going to go, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like within this lifespan, basically. So he doesn't go 1,000 years ago.
Right.
He's still within his own lifespan, but he's traveling back and forth. And he meets a woman, Claire, and he goes to times when she's a child, and anyway, that part is kind of heavily featured in this.
Yeah,
and then, but also the two of them at a certain part in their relationship bicker and have all these fights because things are difficult.
Yeah,
because of his situation that he has.
Yeah, and the circumstances that come with it and behaviors, the problems, and all that. Yeah.
But between all of that stuff, between the fact that she's a child through a lot of it, and then that they're fighting all the time, and that they didn't have chemistry, it was like,
why are y'all even working so hard for this?
Exactly. I don't want to watch this.
Yeah.
This is not enjoyable.
Yeah.
And so by the end, I can totally see why they canceled it. But it was sad because it was a good book.
It's a great book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. I've read so much and watched so much. I'm going a little bit a little crazy now. But The Staircase is one. It was on HBO.
Yes.
There was a documentary on Sundance 8 years ago or so.
Yeah, I watched one on Netflix. Was it the same one?
Probably.
Okay.
I think they then
put it
shown
on
since then.
That's what I thought.
But there's a fictionalized version of it.
Is it Toni Collette?
Toni Collette plays the murdered wife.
Yeah.
And
Colin Firth?
Colin Firth is the husband.
Yeah.
They both do an excellent job. They're brilliant actors. The story itself is so wacky.
It is insane.
It is. There's just some dark comedy in it. Because even though this is a true story, it's just bonkers. And the character is so wild.
I mean, in real life, because I've only seen the documentary. I didn't watch the HBO series. But these people are, or at least, the husband is a character.
Mm-hmm. He's a writer.
Yeah.
And a successful one. He's well off. And turns out his wife turns up dead on the staircase.
In their house.
In their home. And he's there at the time. He's the only other one there at the time.
Or was he outside? He claims. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would recommend watching both of them.
Yes.
The documentary and the series.
There's one particular scenario that might explain what happened that is just insane.
Well, that's why it stuck in my mind from years ago when I saw that documentary, because it was so out there.
Well, and they bring it up sort of after. It's like, maybe the husband killed her, maybe he didn't, maybe it was an accident. And then kind of at the end, I think as far as I can remember, they're just kind of
solution.
it might have been this. And I could see it being that. It's insane, but a lot of evidence pointed to that. Anyway.
For these kinds of things, it is definitely
different. Yes.
It is. It sets itself apart from like all this true crime stuff that's out there right now.
Because at first it comes up and you're like, all right, y'all are really reaching. And then they start kind of pointing all of these things out. And you're like, well, how else would you explain that? Like, it's a really nuts and sad story. Yeah, obviously sad.
Yes. Well, I also I actually just finished it last night. I watched The Old Man on Hulu with Jeff Bridges.
Nick just watched that, and I was kind of upset that he started it without me because I thought I might.
I don't know. The first episode is very creepy. And there's some things about it that I think they just don't get into enough.
Okay.
And it's only like 7 episodes actually. Yeah. And so I think it needed 10 or 12 because there's a lot of like political history because the main character is basically an operative in Afghanistan like 40 years ago or whatever. Yeah. And then he's been in hiding. Okay. It's not giving anything away. That's like at the beginning. He's in hiding. And then, his past catches up to him or whatever. But there's a lot of it that it just sort of assumes that you understand about that era and about what he might have been doing.
Oh, okay.
And then also, like, just like with anything that's like spies or whatever, it's like the double of the doubling and the double crossing. And
you're like, I cannot keep up with who I'm rooting for anymore.
Yeah.
Is it Jeff Bridges and John Lithgow?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so,
which is like, I mean, I should watch it and see, but I just feel like with that duo, it should be perfection. And if it's not good, that's unacceptable.
And then there's some like, it's just kind of disjointed because there's like one episode where he gets really physical. A couple of episodes.
Jeff Bridges?
Yeah, because he's the like top spy or whatever. But now he's 70 years old.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, wow, okay, go Grandpa. And but then there's like flashbacks and there's another character that plays him when he's young.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It didn't 100% work for me, but I wouldn't say don't watch it. You might enjoy it, especially if that's like your kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of other stories about that kind of stuff.
Thing, yeah.
But like there's a kind of I wouldn't say go so far as to say supernatural element, but there is like his mental kind of dream space.
Yeah.
PTSD, whatever you want to call it. It's very promising, but just kind of like dropping it in there, I think muddies the waters.
Got it.
Because it's kind of like, well, obviously this is in his head, but it's really intriguing. It's kind of more interesting than the other stuff that's going on. Right. And you kind of want more of that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, that was my take on that show.
Okay.
But we'll end up with one more, I think. Because I did really, really like it. It's on Peacock, which it's a bummer that it's on that. But it's called The Resort.
Okay, yes.
And it's Kristen Milioti and the actor who played Chidi on The Good Place.
Oh, yes.
And they play a couple and they go to a resort in Mexico. They're you find out, having kind of a hard time in their marriage, and they want to get away.
To like fix it all, so to speak.
And it's kind of unlike anything else that you've seen, maybe. It's got like another, this is a theme for me, dark comedy.
I thought you were going to say climate change.
Not a little bit.
Oh.
There's a hurricane.
Oh, well, yeah, climate change.
But so they find out that at this resort, there was a hurricane 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And these two teenagers went missing. They went lost and never found. And so the wife kind of like takes this as her, something to kind of get her out of her head. Okay. And she's wants to solve this mystery. And then there's these other wild characters that work at the resort, and I really can't. There's some vibes about it that are kind of reminiscent of other things like that, but really not, because there's like serious parts. There's like, they've had trauma, and then there's like these, the father of the missing kids, like there's sad elements of it, but then some parts are just really over the top, like kind of like White Lotus. In that sense, that was another, show about a resort. So there's a couple of things like that, but quirky, it's really more very quirky, very quirky.
Yeah. Okay, I'm into it.
Yeah.
I need to get your Peacock info.
Yes. Shh, don't say anything.
Just kidding. We would never.
No. But yeah, so and it's I think 8 or 10. I think it's 8 episodes, and it's done. Hopefully they're going to do another season, because it kind of leaves it open where there's a possibility of that. But anyway, so
neat,
very good. So I've still got a huge list of books and things that we can talk about. So we will be back.
We're back. We'll chip away at Crystal's list.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
Yes, and we're still reading more stuff and watching more stuff. So we're gonna get back to work and go make things for our big read.
That's right. Come pick up your copy at the library, or come to the farmer's market tomorrow. What is tomorrow's date? What day is
Tomorrow's date is September the 10th, and at the Nacogdoches Farmers Market, and I'll be there with free books and fun stuff. And, of course, you can pick them up anytime at the library.
But we'll see you at the Big Read festivities.
Yep, coming up soon.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.